Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the world. We're grateful to get going today. Uh, our next, our, for another Sawtooth webinar entitled Discover Smarter Surveys. We're going to talk about all the cool features we've put into to Discover recently, and even going to talk about what our plans are coming up. This is a chance for you to kind of get to know the Discover team a little better. We're going to have multiple presenters from the team, and they're with us today, and that's cool. We're excited to have you guys and appreciate your time today. A few quick details here. Here in Zoom, we will use the Q&A section at the bottom. We do not use chat, so feel free to ask any of your questions using that Q&A button there at the bottom. And uh, at the end of the webinar, you can ask questions during the webinar, and we'll try to answer them. But also at the end, we will have time for a Q&A. And then, as always, we will send a link to the video recording of this webinar out to everyone who registered, and it will also be available on our website. A few announcements here. Reminder that on January 15th, we have another webinar scheduled entitled When Data Disagrees, Earning Stakeholder Trust. Highly encourage you to sign up for that one. It's going to be great. Also in May of next year, right, coming up, we have our big Sawtooth Research Conference out in Berlin. And you can find registration on our website. And we really encourage you to get that on your 2026 plans. It's really one of the best events for researchers in the world, we think. And if you go to sawtooth.com/events, you can see a link to the webinars and the workshops and our conference. A little plug for our new podcast called Real Research. You can find it on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. And just finally, a little plug for Sawtooth. If you're not familiar with us, please check us out. We make incredible tools and have amazing support. And you can actually try us for free at discover.sawtooth.com. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn the time over to our esteemed Brian McEwen, the product manager of Discover.
All right. Thank you, Justin. Excited for today's webinar. This is a new tradition for us. About 1 year ago, we did the same thing. In December, we came together and we said, hey, here's a review of a lot of the really cool stuff we did. And then I had this slide at the end where I said, here's some of our ideas for the next steps for Discover, and kind of bucketed it into kind of survey programming, Conjoint and MaxDiff, and then like platform ecosystem. And then I had this slide here. Oops. This slide here where I said, we want to know your feedback. Justin and I set the roadmap for Discover, and we respond to feedback. We love to hear what our customers think, what you want, what features we can improve in, what things that other people do that you would like us to see. And we did a pretty good job. We knocked a lot of these off due to feedback, due to what customers were writing us about, and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. So we're going to do it again. We're going to talk about a lot of the cool things that we added. We're going to hear from the team again this year. Not everyone who works on Discover, but a few of our designers and developers. And just another fun fact of everyone who's participating in the webinar today represents 64 years at Sawtooth. We have a pretty good group. We like each other and get along and enjoy making software together. So we have a fun time with it. So first off, I'm going to transfer over to Skylar, one of our designers.
Hello, everyone. Brian, like Brian said, I am Skylar Karchner. I am a UX designer at Sawtooth, and I have been here almost 5 years myself. So I've had the opportunity to work on Discover for a long time, and it's been a really fun opportunity. So I'm excited to kick us off with the first couple of features for the current Discover users out there. Hopefully, you've been able to experience this feature because this has been out for a few months now. But I'm going to demo block creation and randomizing blocks within a collection. So I've already started out with a survey. Those of you that have been up to date on your emails, we sent out a holiday survey. So I've kind of shown some, we're kind of using this as an example of a layout and how I created that in the back end. So as you can see, I have a couple of blocks that I've already created. But to create additional blocks is very easy. After you are editing, next to this new page button that you have, there's the ability to add to new block, and it brings up the normal add menu like we all know, and you can insert new questions, and it creates a new block. Another way of doing this, if you have forgotten to create a block, or you just go through and author all of your questions in one block in the beginning. You can click on a question and there's an option to split to new block, which is pretty cool as well. Um, so I'm going to click on the block. You can select these in the navigation menu and rename them. So we'll just call this shopping. And so right now, as far as this is set up, it's basically just an organizational structure in authoring, but to actually use it in data collection for something that is more meaningful, you can switch from the questions view to the collections view. And here we'll see all of our blocks. And the way that I've set up this survey, for those of you that were able to take it, I have this multiple choice question at the beginning that asks, what are your favorite parts of the holiday season with multiple options? So I'm going to use that for one of the block behaviors. So I will start by creating a collection. So I'll select the first block and click on this button, Create Collection, and it inserts this into a new collection that I could name if I wanted to. And I can drag in the other blocks that I want to be a part of this. And by default, again, this doesn't really do anything unless I choose to randomize them. And at that point, it would just show every respondent, every block. There are a couple other options to show a subset. So you can like define that I only want respondents to see two, and you can randomize them and prioritize least seen blocks. And then the most powerful option is to follow a list. So again, current Discover users will have more experience with list building, but I'll reference that question that I mentioned, the multi-select about asking about multiple or favorite holiday activities. Um, so I'll use this quick function at the bottom, carry forward items. And that question was season favorites. And I will choose selected by the respondent and save that. And so now there are more options than I have in, blocks corresponding inside of the collection. But if a respondent selects gathering and parties, they will see that block. And just with any of our other list functionalities, you have the full capabilities of all the other functions that are available here. So if you wanted to randomize the blocks, you can also choose to set a list length. So you can cap the respondents at seeing two blocks. But that is randomized blocks. It's a pretty powerful feature. In this fe survey, it's not as exciting because I've only placed one question in each of these blocks. But if you were to have like a much larger survey, obviously it becomes more and more valuable. Um, so that's that. And then one more feature, completely shifting gears to from authoring to analysis. And I'm going to switch into a different survey that has all of the entire holiday survey in it. Like I said, we'll switch to analysis. And this new feature, this other feature that I'm going to demo is called um, uh, response groups. And for those of you that did take the survey, you probably cringed a little bit when you had a numeric question asking for age, because obviously, usually those are typically a single select with predefined groups. But did that for this demo. So it's pretty cool. Response groups allow you to create um, pretty much just based off of the name, custom response groups of the response options. Especially for a numeric, it's pretty powerful because it allows you to use the question type in areas of the analysis that you previously weren't able to. So if you go to the analysis and in the navigation on the right, I'll select this numeric question and there's this options button and I'll select group responses and I'll just create three groups and it's pretty straightforward for a numeric question, but you can add as many groups as you want. You don't have to set ranges for all of the numbers possible. You can exclude things, but I will set it for the full range that I allowed in my question and name these groups. And I'll click save. And it's going to take a second to recalculate the results, but now that numeric question has turned into what is basically looks like a single select question report. And this is kind of cool, especially for like an age question. You could imagine grouping responses allow you to kind of look at maybe split demographics in a different way since you have a little bit more precision on specific ages, since you are not asking them to select within like 10 years. And now, like I said, it's pretty cool. You can the hopefully the analysis is ready. Okay, yeah, I can use this. It's pretty cool. Now, again, numeric questions previously were not allowed for like segmentation or in crosstabs because they weren't categorical variables, but with response groups, you can create them as categorical. And in these areas where you're able to select them, it's pretty cool. We have also added the ability to create response groups here. So if you wanted to like group the seasonal favorites into different categories, you can do that with any of the question types. But that is blocks and response groups in Discover. Hopefully you enjoy them, and I will pass it on to my coworker, Nate.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nate. I work with Skylar. I'm another UX designer on the team, and we're excited to be here today. I will share my screen. First thing I wanted to show was actually the survey that Skylar started with. This is the respondent experience of that survey, and I just wanted to touch on a few slides or a few pages of the survey to show what customization is possible in Discover. One of our goals with Discover is to make it the most open and customizable platforms on the market. So you can see here, if you're familiar with our default style, it's a white background, black text with blue buttons. So obviously we changed everything, different background, different fonts even, and we have this fun little snowing animation, which is pretty fun. Actually, I'm going to skip. I'm in test here, so I can skip around. So here we go. Another customization that we did, and I'll zoom in a little bit here so it's easier for you guys to see. when you click on these multi-select response options, there's a candy cane as the check mark instead of the default check mark. Also, this is in 2 columns, which is not a default setting that we have. So we've applied some customization in the layout here as well. And as a last thing with this single select, again, we swapped out the radio for an ornament, a Christmas ornament. So it's pretty powerful what you can do with a little knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You can do virtually anything. So if you haven't given that a try and customized a survey, then you definitely should. It's pretty fun. The feature that I'm going to demo today is filters. And so when you're in the analysis tab at the top, you'll see this toolbar right below that here. So there's a button to the left that says filter. And I'm actually going to move to a different question. So I'm going to look at movies, the movies report, and I'm going to apply what we call quick filters. So I'm going to click on the filter button, and I'm going to actually use the age grouped response group that Skylar just created. And I want to look at, let's just say, younger and middle adults. I hit apply, and then the screen here is going to reload. So now I'm looking at responses only from younger and middle-aged adults. And I can actually stack these. So you'll notice that there's a little chip here, a little pill, that represents the setting that I just configured. I can click on that and do something different. If I wanted to add older adults or maybe take out middle adults, I can apply, and then it will update again. But there's also this add filter button here, so I can add something else. So let's just say seasonal favorites, and I want to only look at people who enjoy cozy nights in, and I apply that. So now I'm looking at younger adults who also like cozy nights in. So this is now filtered to that. One note is that filters apply across all of analysis. So if I go to goal setting, for example, or any other report, it looks like that was a bad choice because there's 0 responses here. Let's see if we can find something else. Here we go. These filters are still applied. So it's applied everywhere. The only exceptions to that are in a handful of places where analysis isn't automatically run for you. So the simulator, for example, CBC simulator, and then crosstabs, you have to configure those and then hit a run button. So you actually have to press a button over there to have that run instead of it being applied automatically. One last little thing with filters. So again, we call these quick filters because you can just throw them up here really quick and they stack, but you do have the option here. There's a save button. So I'll just say young adults. I'm going to name this filter young adults cozy. And you can see it's now converted those quick selections into logic with our typical logic builder. If you've built skip logic or quotas or anything like that. It's the same logic builder. I can hit save and apply. And now it's collapsed that down into a single, what we call advanced filter. You can only have one advanced filter applied at a time. So if I wanted to change this, I either have to get rid of it or I can open this and select a new one, assuming I had another one. So I could add another advanced filter here if I wanted to, or I can clear by clicking the X on that little pill. It's going to clear my filter. And then I can come back in here and do it all again. I could set new quick filters, or if you scroll down to the bottom of this menu, a new section is added with all of my advanced filters. So now I can create a filter and quickly choose it and clear it and switch to a different one if I wanted to. So I only have to build my logic one time, and then I can just come back and switch between them really quickly by selecting the advanced filter in this menu. So that is filters. And I will now pass the torch to Josh.
Thank you, Nate. Sorry, just getting my camera turned on there. And I will grab the screen. All right. As Nate said, my name is Josh. I am a software engineering manager here at Sawtooth, and I lead one of the teams that works on Discover. I'm excited today to showcase a really cool feature called Relevant Items MaxDiff. Now, some of you might be familiar with Relevant Items MaxDiff. Others of you may have never heard of it. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of explain what this question type is. At the same time, I'm showing you how to make it, and then we'll kind of showcase what it's like when you take a survey that has this question type in it, and then we'll briefly cover a little bit of analysis. I'm also going to use that holiday season survey. I'm going to use specifically the MaxDiff question with the Christmas movies, but I'm going to jump into a different survey where I can kind of build this, and then we'll come back to the survey when we show the analysis. I've got this one that I call Christmas survey setup that we're going to use. So I'm going to start by just making a normal MaxDiff. So come over here. I've got this regular MaxDiff. I'm going to paste in the same kind of movie list we had. So these 16 movies. I won't go ahead. I won't put in the pictures or anything right now. But yeah, and I'll go ahead and look at the advanced tab. Looks like we're going to have 5 items per task, 10 tasks. We're going to see each movie around 3 times. I'll go ahead and publish that. Wait a couple seconds for it to publish, jump over, and take the survey. So you'll notice this looks very much like a normal MaxDiff question. So I choose the best, choose the worst movie, and I do that 10 times as a respondent, and I'm done with the survey. This MaxDiff is a great question type for a lot of different data sets, but some data sets you run into a little problem, and this is a really good example of a data set that runs into this problem. So if I'm a respondent, I may have not seen all of these movies. So I maybe didn't see Love Actually, or uh, heaven forbid, I've never seen Elf. I I don't know what to put for those, right? And so as a respondent, if I were to get this question, I might choose one of them as the worst, just because I'm like, well, I love The Nightmare Before Christmas, but I have no idea what this movie is, so I'll just put it as the worst. Other respondents may say, I don't know what this movie is, so I'll just never pick it because I don't really know anything about it, right? And either way, you can imagine the data for that respondent might not be quite as good. Plus, because I have to see each of these items 3 times, I've got to answer 10 MaxDiff tasks. And that might be frustrating as a respondent if a great many of the MaxDiff tasks contain choices that I don't feel like I can adequately make because I just don't really know what the movies are, right? So what we'd really like to do is come up with a way that we can just have people answer MaxDiff with items that they know something about or that are relevant to them. And with Relevant Items MaxDiff, that's exactly what we can do. So I'm going to jump back over to here. And instead of asking a MaxDiff with these 16 movies in it, I'm going to add a question before this MaxDiff, a multi-select question. And I am going to ask, I'm going to type here, what movies have you seen? Right? And then I'm going to paste in that same list of 16 movies. And then in the MaxDiff, instead of using this list, I'm going to carry forward the items that were selected in that first question. Now, when I do that, I need to change my MaxDiff type from traditional to relevant items. And you'll see that a few changes happen down here in the exercise design. So first of all, this number of MaxDiff tasks changes to be a maximum number of MaxDiff tasks. And this number of times each item is shown also changes to be maximum. So I'm going to drop this to 3 so we see the items the same amount of times we were seeing them in the traditional MaxDiff. And then I'm going to go ahead and publish this survey. And we're going to see how the survey changes for the respondent. So now I get greeted with this kind of screener question that's like, hey, of these 16 movies, which ones have you even seen? So I'm going to go ahead and pick 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to say that I have never seen these 8. And I'm going to click next. And you'll notice that this is a much more ideal MaxDiff for this respondent because now the only movies that are showing up in it are movies that I've seen, and I only have to answer half the number of tasks because for me to see each item 3 times, I don't need as many tasks to do that, right? So this is a much better respondent experience, both because I don't have to take as long of a survey and I can easily make this assessment because I'm not seeing any of the movies that I've never seen. So just a much better respondent experience overall. So as a researcher, once we finished fielding this survey, how does analysis work with relevant items MaxDiff? Um, and how does it compare to a traditional MaxDiff? So if I jump in and just jump down to this MaxDiff, you'll notice a couple changes from traditional. So usually with traditional, HB will just automatically run when you go to this tab. With relevant items, it doesn't. I have to run it manually, and that's because I need to choose how I'm going to deal with those items that didn't get carried forward for each respondent. And my choice here depends on kind of why those items didn't get moved forward. So had I made my question something like, pick your top 8 movies, then I know with pretty good certainty that the 8 movies they picked are probably better than the 8 movies they didn't pick. So in that case, I might tell HB, hey, just go ahead, when you're computing the utilities, go ahead and assume that the movies that didn't get carried forward are worse than the movies that did. But for this data set, when we're just saying, hey, which ones have you seen? I don't want to make an assumption of whether the movie that they had never seen is better or worse. So I choose the default option, which is just missing at random, which doesn't make kind of any of those assumptions. So then I would click run. I'm not going to run that. I'm just going to jump over to an already run one that actually has data. So here's that holiday season survey. If I jump over to the MaxDiff analysis here, you'll notice that relevant items looks very similar to traditional. In fact, there's really no difference. That's one of the beauties of it, that we get all of the same kind of results that we get with traditional, the same quality of results. So we can still make comparisons between the movies and see which ones people liked more than others. We can jump over to this advanced tab and get a report on what, for each movie, what percentage of respondents had that movie in the design. So that can help us see which movies, got quite a bit of data associated with which ones perhaps didn't make it into very many designs because people hadn't really seen it very much. We can do everything that we can with traditional MaxDiff. We can use Segment Finder. We can do turf analysis. So all the things that you would expect to be able to do with a normal MaxDiff, you can do with a relevant items MaxDiff. And then I did want to just showcase one other feature while I'm in here that we built, not strictly speaking related to relevant items MaxDiff, but useful for all MaxDiffs. If we download the individual utilities, and in this case, I'm going to say for the items that were missing, that didn't get carried forward, I just want those exported as blank fields. And then I go ahead and download these utilities, which will just take just a second. So to get through. And then I'll show just a really neat feature that we were able to build that helps us assess the quality of the respondents that we did get. So open this file up here. There we go. So you'll notice that this just contains our individual utilities. You'll notice that I have blanks where the person
Hey Josh,
chose
we
in that
can't
movie.
we can't see your spreadsheet.
So let me quickly stop the sharing and reshare here. And then, yep, there we go. Thank you very much. So here's the spreadsheet. You'll notice that the boxes are blank for the items that they didn't see. And then the one thing I just wanted to highlight is over here, we added this thing called the model fit relative quality, which is sort of a Sawtooth special formula we created that will tell you kind of, give you kind of a good idea of whether that respondent was a good respondent or a moderate respondent or a bad respondent, or whether they, brought in so few items that they didn't actually really see enough tasks for us to make a good assessment of whether they're a quality respondent. So this can be a useful way to data clean and to figure out which respondents may be good to include and which response may be good not to include in your results. So that's all I have. So I'm going to turn the time over to Brian again. And thanks.
Hey, thanks everyone. I get to show off some of my favorite features that we did. This was a more recent release to us where we did a pretty massive update to the conjoint exercises, and kind of a three-part thing here. So prior to this change, Discover would create an experimental design, the set of questions that a respondent sees in the moment where they start the survey and hit the conjoint exercise. And one of the nice things, if you know anything about Sawtooth, we're very open. We publish white papers. We show that our design algorithms produce really nice, balanced, uncorrelated designs. And Discover has a really, really nice algorithm that does this. However, there's an element of uh, crossing your fingers and hoping that things work out well. And so, as we started to think about the pathway of conjoint and taking some of the fancier, more advanced capabilities that we have in our list of things to do, we decided it was time to make a switch to generating those question sets ahead of time and giving you a report of them. So I have a sample survey here that has a handful of attributes and levels. When we generate our designs, by default, we're going to generate 30 versions of a design. So respondent 1 is going to see a different set of conjoint questions than respondent 2. Respondent 3 sees a different than 2. So we get some nice variation and everyone doesn't see the exact same questions. Design generation goes very fast. And we kind of have some statuses here. So this one, I'm not getting in the way of it by trying to ask a very small number of questions or adding a lot of prohibitions. So the design successfully generates and I'm good to go. If I want to view the report, we can get some additional details here. It shows me my attributes and my levels, the average number of times that these are shown to our respondents. And then gives us some standard error predictions at recommended sample sizes. This is another really fun update. So we're saying, hey, based on the attributes, levels, prohibitions, number of concepts, taking all that into account, we would recommend a pretty decent sample size for 257 respondents and maybe a bit more of a robust, healthier sample size that should produce greater precision on the utilities when we run the regression and actually produce those utilities. So really nice kind of internally I call this wrapping the warm blanket around someone and kind of telling you like, hey, you're going to be okay. You don't have to cross your fingers and hope that things work out. And then you can also view a two-way balance here. This can be helpful if you start adding prohibitions and things start to get out of whack where certain levels show a lot more often than others. You can also look at an individual level frequency and see what respondents are going to see on a version by version basis. So you get very good transparency into what people are going to see. And then those tests as well allow us to do those sample size predictions. So that's a lot of fun. We did that primarily for the opportunity to add a heavy hitter. If you're a Lighthouse user, you've heard these called alternative specific designs or nested attributes. And this is the idea where you have attributes that only apply in certain situations. So we've got an example here of a transportation survey where I can offer people taking the bus, driving their car, or walking. Waiting time, well, that doesn't make sense if I'm driving my car or walking because I leave when I choose to. But when I take the bus, there's probably going to be some sort of wait time. And then we also want to make this a little more realistic. So taking the bus is, in this case, a lot cheaper than parking for your car. But again, if I walk, those don't apply to anything. So by setting up this nesting structure here, we can create more realistic conjoint experiments that contain different products that are very, very different to one another. Now, as we added this feature, there is a really important companion feature here. Although it's great to have multiple waiting times or prices and things like that, we can collapse these down and make them view a little nicer to people. So I've got a fully done version of this. So this survey represents two parts in my design tab. I've set up this nesting structure, and I've said bus has wait time, ticket price, and bus commute. car has parking cost and car commute, and walking has the walk commute time. So this is the setting up the nesting structure here as you choose which attributes apply based on the level of the primary or parent attribute. And then in addition to that, we have merged attributes together. So we've created a grouping and we've said, let's merge our length of commute options together. And we're just going to call that the length of commute. And we choose where we place it. And what that does then, if we look at our sample task over here, is we're going to push those three rows together and visually present it as a single row. We're not changing the design. We're not changing the utility estimation, just a nice visual collapse of those levels. If we also wanted to, we could do the same thing with the price. You could have multiple mergings, just like we can have multiple nesting relationships, and we could just say like cost and put those two rows together if we wanted to. So these three features together, the warm blanket experimental design and design testing, alternative specific or nested attributes design, and the merging rows together represents a very significant boost to the capabilities of Discover. We're definitely not done there. We've got a lot of things in the hopper, lots of ideas as well, but it was really nice to get this release out. Shortly before that, we also did a release. If you joined us in a previous webinar, then you saw, let me open up a different survey here. You saw our implementation of latent class analysis or segment finder. What segment finder does is looks for groups of people with similar preference structures. So as an example, this was an advertising message test for a cola company. And so we tested with MaxDiff, we tested a lot of things, more than we would usually want to do with rating scales or ranking questions. And although we get our utilities for them, what Segment Finder does is we'll hunt for as many segments as you tell it to run. In this case, we said, let's go up to 4 segments, and it will try to arrange those segments in such a way that the segments are similar within themselves and different across the segments. And so in this case, at the very top, we try to highlight a handful of options that represent the greatest differentiators. So in this case, which messages have the greatest differences across groups? And what happens is this two-segment solution specifically has an interesting break where segment 2 has a very high utility on the 0 calorie, the 0 guilt messages. So they're prioritizing the messages more about this being a diet soda, not having the calories and sugar in it. Whereas segment 1 has those a lot lower utility, and their higher options are the more adventurous options, a taste adventure in every bottle, embrace the bold flavor of the mountains in every sip. So kind of fun. We do have a similar result here for our holiday survey. So this was a conjoint. So again, Segment Finder works for both Conjoint and MaxDiff. Our greatest differentiators here was segment 1 was a lot more likely to say pass on our options. So this was the conjoint where it was asking you, here's 2 get together options, which would you prefer? So segment 1, more likely to say pass, found greater utility in the smaller options. Segment 2, much more likely, large negative on that none utility, so much more likely to choose one of the options, and did not care for the small groupings quite as well. If we scroll down, we can get a full view of all the utilities here. And so you can see segment 2 preferred the slightly larger gatherings more than segment 1. So you can compare through these. I won't spend too much time on this, but we do calculate a fit statistic In this case, kind of not that unexpected. This is a pretty small sample size. So as we try to split things further and further, we're not getting a lot of great results, at least from this statistical part of things. If you want to go watch that whole webinar, we dive into more kind of the art and science of clustering and segmenting and things like that. Um, and let's see, I hit all my boxes here. So I'm going to turn it back over to Josh now. And we're going to start talking a little bit about some AI features that we've been brainstorming and working on.
I just want to jump in really quick. Elizabeth asked this question. You may have addressed this already, but are these new features available in Lighthouse Studio or Discover only? Quick way is some of them are only in Discover, and some of them are features that we loved in Lighthouse that we're bringing over to Discover. So there's kind of a mixed bag here. Brian, do you have any comments on that?
No, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, with Discover, we've got internally, I call it a great big pile of good. Lighthouse has been around for a long time and does a lot of really cool things. And so most of what we're doing is taking the core pieces of that, uh, along with feedback, to see if we can add maybe some little enhancements or a new thing. So, something like segment finder or latent class analysis exists in both platforms, but like the greatest differentiator showcase at the top is something we've added to Discover and haven't yet gone back and added to Lighthouse. So most of the things we're talking about are available in both platforms. Good
Yep.
clarification.
So yeah, feel free to email in on details. But of course, over to Josh, we're going to talk about some AI stuff that's not yet in Lighthouse.
All right. So, as I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about some AI features. AI is kind of the buzzword as of late. So, we've tried to kind of thoughtfully incorporate AI into some places where we think we can people can get the maximum utility from it. So, one of the areas that we've chosen to incorporate it is with open ends, qualitative data sort of AI's bread and butter, so text. So the first feature that I'm going to be showing is something called Smart Follow-up. So let's say that I have an open-end question. This is, again, the holiday survey that we've been using for everything. We've got this question that's what's something that always makes the holiday season memorable for you? And people may put any number of answers to this, baking cookies, wrapping presents. But I may want to probe a little bit and see, get some more information, right? Similar to what I might do if I was interviewing that person live, and we were face to face, I might ask them a probing question and say, hey, can you give me a little bit more detail about that? And so the smart follow-up allows us to do that. So to create one, we just add another question to our survey, and we'll just choose this one called smart follow-up. I've already added it to this survey, so we don't need to do that, but it's right here. It's very easy to use. The settings are very similar to any other question, so I can set the same settings I could for an open end. I can choose a source question. So in this case, I choose this other open end here. And then Sawtooth has written, we have an AI prompt that will generally produce pretty good follow-up questions for most data sets. But if you were, kind of targeting a very specific thing you wanted in your probe, you could add some additional instructions to give the AI some additional context. So I'm not going to add that, but and then you'll see if you take the survey, which I'm going to do right here, and I say something like baking cookies, right? And then I click next. You'll see that it will produce for me kind of a probe. What is it about baking cookies that makes the holiday season memorable for you? And can provide some additional information. It's really cool to see kind of the types of information, data that you can pull out of these types of questions. So here is the results from the holiday survey, and I just want to highlight kind of some of the ones that I think are pretty cool. So let me come down here. So you'll notice here's a person who, when they were asked what's their favorite holiday tradition, they're like family parties and traditions together. But when we asked the probe question here, we got all this stuff. We have a family ski night. We enjoy holiday together with a good breakfast. We enjoy caramels and Rocky Road and toffee. Or another one is down here, right? Seeing my kids get so excited opening presents. We get this, can you share a specific moment? And the person said, I remember we got our daughter a little trampoline when she was 3 and she was jumping around in it, yelling, I love Christmas. Or perhaps this one, carrying on traditions with new or younger family and friends. When we asked this probing question, could you share more about specific traditions that you enjoy? We just get this nice, rich, open-end answer about the person who's the bow wearer, and all presents with bows must be given to that person. So this is just a way to really just enhance the quality of your open ends, be able to kind of probe a little bit deeper and get better answers to the things that you want out of those qualitative style questions. So I'm going to turn the time over to Kevin, who's going to show another AI feature.
Hello, my name is Kevin Liu. I'm a software engineer on the Discover team, and I'm going to give you a sneak preview into an AI feature that we've been developing that's not currently in production. It's just in our developer environment, but it's coming soon. So we wanted to show you um, a little bit of a preview of it. So this is open-end AI analysis. And so I'm going to share my screen and show you what that looks like. So before I show you what the analysis results look like, just want to show you how you can generate this analysis. Oh, okay, so here in our survey, we have our open question that Josh was just showing you. What's something that always makes the holiday season memorable for you? But once you've collected your data, you can go to the analysis tab, and then you can navigate to that open in question, memorable season. And then now here in this open-end analysis area, you have this new AI section. And so what it says is let the AI generate a summary, sentiment analysis, and theme categorization. So these are three different types of AI analysis that we're currently working on. The only one that we have results currently being generated for is theme categorization. So I'm going to show you that one. But just wanted to mention that we're also working on summary and then sentiment analysis as well that will be upcoming. So I'm not going to run this right now because it does take a few minutes to run, but I've already run this analysis on this data set. So I want to show you those results of the themes that it came up with from our responses. So this is similar to what you see on Amazon when it summarizes review categories um, or other websites that do a lot of similar things. But the categories that it came up with for this open end was family and relationships is the largest category. So a lot of people talked about that. Traditions and cultural significance, memory and nostalgia, emotional connections and experiences, holiday activities and entertainment, food and culinary experiences, atmosphere and environment, and then there's a few others that didn't fit into any of those categories. And then for each of these categories, it tells you how many responses are in each category, gives you a short description of that category, and then it gives you a couple excerpts or verbatim responses from respondents in that category. Um, so, for instance, in this holiday activities and entertainment, talks about being around a lot of people and watching funny movies, um, so on and so forth. So, what's nice about this is that typically, when you are analyzing open-end data, you have to go through, it's a very manual, painstaking process of reading through all the responses and trying to code them and do all of this categorization yourself. And so we try to make that easier by leveraging AI, which, as Josh mentioned, is really good at processing text. So we're really excited about this. Brian also asked me to mention just briefly some of the uh, development process that's gone into this. It's been a lot of trial and error. We've applied a few different approaches to this open-end analysis, and both of those are based on a paper by Jacob Nelson of the Harris Poll. The paper is called Transforming Open-Ended Survey Response Analysis with AI Transformer Models, which is a fun title. But that's just if any of you are interested in looking into that. But basically, there's one approach where you just feed a prompt to a large language model, and then it'll give you the response back of the categories. And then there's another approach, which is more of a mathematical hands-on approach, which is called an embeddings flow. And with that, we extract the key phrases from the responses, and then we translate them to an array of vectors. And then we do some math, some cosine similarities on the vectors in order to construct the categories. So we've been playing around with these few different approaches and comparing the results, and we're still kind of fine-tuning things. But once we get to a point of where we're really happy with the results, then we'll release this, and that should be coming up soon. So we're really excited about it, and we hope that you use it and enjoy it as well. And with that, I'm going to give the floor back to Justin.
Hey guys. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the team. Hopefully, you can see how smart these guys are, and they're also hardworking and also great to work with. It's like the three great things, right? Hardworking, smart, great to work with. So you're in good hands with with these fellows, and there's a lot more smart folks that didn't present today. So we're grateful for our team. If I want to say this before I forget, but I just want to give, a big virtual hug to everybody out there. We love you guys. I wish we could present to you in person, but we hope you have a great holiday season with your families, and we really appreciate you being fans and for supporting Sawtooth. Another thought I want to put in your brains, we're really well known for Conjoint and MaxDiff being really good at those, best in the world at both of those. And it's a kind of a two-edged sword. We just want to remind people we're getting really good at just general interviewing. And so we want you to consider us for all of your surveys, not just the Conjoint and the MaxDiff. Anyway, with that, I am going to talk a little bit about what's next. Brian McEwen, can you turn on your camera and your mic and just join me?
Bet.
Really appreciate Brian. He's a uh, great product manager of Discover and doing great work. These are just four things we've identified as what we'll be doing more immediate. We have lots of plans more longer term. We're hearing a lot of people ask for an emailer where you can email out invitations to your survey. Our first step with this is going to be tapping into your mail server so that we can go through your mail server, but we will handle push a button and send out the invitation, push a button and remind people who haven't finished the survey or haven't started yet to finish it. So we're excited about that feature. Next up is stat testing. I don't know, Brian, if you want to make some comments on the stat testing. I know Lou had one of the question about this in the Q&A.
Yep. Yeah, so right now our current plan for a first step into stat testing will be in your crosstabs on a comparing columns. So if I had like a 5-point rating scale of some brands as my rows, and then I wanted to crosstab that with like a question where I asked if someone was a current customer or something like that. We're going to do significance testing among the columns. Lou asked about adding a chi-squared. That's probably not going to be in step one, but would be a natural future thing to add. So yeah, significance testing into your crosstab columns is the current plan.
Yeah, next up here is integrated sample, right? So this is where within Discover, you can say, hey, I want 150 females from California to take my survey. And you can get this sample, these respondents who want to take surveys. You can get them to easily flow into your survey. And we sell sample now. You can call us up and we can get you hooked up with some panel, but it's not nicely integrated with point and click and in Discover. So we plan on doing that. Final thing is view, edit, delete data, right? This is where you could see all the respondents that took your survey, kind of in uh, a grid view, spreadsheet kind of view, and you could see each one, and then you can edit things or delete individual records, etc. We have a lot more things that we are planning on, but just don't have time to go over it today. But we do have a Q&A section here at the end, and we'd love for you to type in the Q&A what you would like to see next. So be thinking about that and start typing here. I would like to just remind you of these two events coming up. Our next webinar in January 15th, when data disagrees. I encourage you to come check that out. And then our fabulous CRC, Sawtooth Research Conference in Berlin, Germany this year. Please get that on your calendar and consider coming out. It will be excellent. I did want to, also remind you of this podcast that we've launched to check that out. And yeah, just hey, check Discover out for free if you haven't tried it at discover.sawtooth.com. And with that, some Q&A here. I do want to just make a quick comment here about AI. This is kind of our first step into AI, right? We're excited about it. We're going to kind of see how people like it, what your feedback is. But we have plenty more AI features we're planning on bringing, but just kind of, venturing out in that world right now.
Yeah, I'll go
Okay.
ahead and highlight a couple that we typed in answers for. We did have a question about relevant items compared to Bandit MaxDiff. There are a lot of flavors of MaxDiff. There is a paper on our website that gives a summary of all of them, but Bandit's one of my favorite ones, so I thought I'd take a moment to highlight the difference there as well. So with relevant items, like we talked about, you remove the items so that respondents don't see them, and then you make some sort of assumption. We have to inform the model some way what to do with these things where a respondent didn't ever tell us that they are best or worst or better or worse than the other items you chose as best or worst. So you're relying either on the hierarchical Bayesian algorithm to make an educated guess. I made kind of a joke in one of the answers that when you choose the missing at random option and you're leveraging hierarchical Bayes, if we were hunting for some sweet venture funding, we'd start talking about synthetic data and how we can generate synthetic data. It's kind of a similar thing where we're making an educated guess based on some of your answers and other respondents to guess how you would have answered for an item that you dropped. Or you can take over and say, I want the dropped items to be worse than the kept items. For example, if you're going to run turf analysis and someone has never seen a movie, we don't want to make an assumption that they're going to like it. So you can effectively say, no, it cannot produce any sort of fit or any sort of reach when we're running turf. Bandit, however, is a sampling approach for ability in the design. So if I have a huge number of items and I only want to ask people 8 MaxDiff questions, we can choose a subset of items to give each respondent. And then as we learn, as more and more people take the survey, we get better and better at predicting which items have a high likelihood of being chosen as best and not being chosen as worst. So we can start to oversample and prioritize the items that are performing well in the survey and spend a lot less survey time on items that are not doing well. So it's an adaptive design approach that allows us to prioritize just the best items. Again, white paper on that. It shows how if your goal is just to choose, say, the top 5 items from a really big list, you can get there with a third of the sample size as a traditional MaxDiff. So it's really fun. We haven't added it yet to Discover. If that's the feature that'll get you to switch, shoot me an email and we'll add it for you.
Thanks, Brian. So yeah, not a lot of ideas coming in through the Q&A. I'm assuming that means we've addressed most of the things that you need, but maybe you're just shy. So feel free to email either Brian or I. We're extremely responsive on your ideas and things that you'd like to see next in Discover. Luke's talking about, hey, what about adding ACBC? We know that's a thing. Adaptive choice-based conjoint over in Lighthouse Studio. People love it. It's a massive project. We might consider adding in pieces of ACBC, but it's not in our immediate plan. And I do want to remind you, you can actually join Discover surveys with Lighthouse Studio surveys. So you could have, most of your survey in Discover and then link into a Lighthouse Studio ACBC exercise and then link back to Discover. Any more comments about ACBC, Brian?
No, just it's got a lot of bells and whistles. There's a lot of parts. My prediction for the future is that we're going to bring it over piece by piece, rather than say, boom, we have adaptive CBC. So, for example, similar to the relevant items max diff, adding that dynamic list capability so that you could drop attributes or drop levels from an attribute is my prediction for the first part of adaptive CBC that will make it over to Discover.
Okay, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Again, have a great holiday season with your families, and we really appreciate you guys. Thanks to Brian and the team for this great presentation. This will be recorded. You can share it out. And with that, we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.